Anonymous, in your opinions, which of the defilements do you think is the hardest to reduce or remove? Okay, so this related question to what I want to address. Yeah, so some of you are quite prolific in reading the Nikayas or the sutras. I think that's good. Yeah. So the teachings are very interesting because the teachings, you'll notice that they are more or less in a narrative form, right? Yeah, so it describes a time and place, and then, or a certain time and a certain place. Sometimes not very precise, yeah, because it always says at one time. It never tell you exactly is it at what time, you know, like which year was it? Was it in August or was it in September? Never tell you. Yeah, but at one time. And then it will usually have a few characters, yeah, a few person who is involved. Sometimes the suttas don't involve the Buddha at all. Oftentimes it does. And according to what was discussed, then either the Buddha or his disciples will respond accordingly. So as a result, sometimes some students find that learning the Dhamma is not very structured if you just read the suttas directly, right? Because what is discussed in the sutra or whatever is asked by that particular person to the Buddha may or may not be relevant to you, right? So it depends, right? So one way is we read all the sutras. Yeah. And then as we read, then we pick up those that is relevant to us at that point in time. Yeah. But how do we know what is relevant or what is not relevant? Yeah, because another approach is you go for a so-called structured Dhamma class. Yeah, structured in what sense? Structured in the sense that, oh, we have a curriculum, we have a class structure, and it's a 3-year course. And then we start off with certain topics and we progress accordingly, you know, much like in school, right? Yeah. Yeah. So different courses, different faculties, and then you progress accordingly. But if you think about these two approaches, they appear to be slightly different. Yeah. But they have some similarities or commonalities. And the commonalities is that they serve to provide, in a way, information, yeah, or answers, if you will. The difference being that in the case of the structured course, you have to know what you want already. Yeah. In the case of the Buddha's approach, when you read all the sutras, in a way, you also have to know what you want already. Yeah. So in a way, this is also the commonality. Why do I say that? When you learn the structured way, you need to know what you want already. Because in a way that, for example, if you apply for a maths course, mathematics course, you need to know that you want maths. The teacher don't have to figure out whether you want maths. If you attend my class, it means you want maths, right? If you go and sign up for an art painting class, the teacher don't have to convince you further or to find out whether, hey, are you interested in arts or something? No. So it's pre-selection. Yeah. The fact that you attend this course or that course, you already decide you want that outcome. Yeah. In much a similar way, when we learn the Dhamma, we should also know what we want out of it. Yeah. And then then the question is, what do we want out of the Dhamma? Yeah. That question is important to ask ourselves, because otherwise when we go through the sutras, especially if you just go through the sutras, it becomes very haphazard. It feels very haphazard. Although the sutra, to me, as far as I'm concerned, is not haphazard, because to each specific person is tailored. Yeah, the sutra is tailored for specific individuals that the Buddha encounter, whom the Buddha encounter, or the disciples encountered. Yeah, so it is never haphazard. It's never like say for the sake of saying. It's targeted. Yeah, but because now the good thing about modern society, about our time now, is that we have free access to all the teachings, practically all. Yeah, for all intents and purposes, we can say all. The bad news is we have access to all the teachings. Yeah, sometimes without knowing what we want out of it. So it appears haphazard to us. So how is this related to the question? In your opinion, which of the defilements do you think is the hardest to remove, to reduce, or remove? Yeah, it's related because this can help us with the question of what is our goal. Yeah. When we learn the Dhamma, sometimes the purpose in the sutra itself may not be so apparent. Sometimes it's very apparent. Yeah. Sometimes it's very apparent in what sense? In the sense that, oh, this person lost a son, so went to see the Buddha. Oh, so this is about how to deal with grief, how to deal with the loss of loved ones. Okay, have I lost any loved one recently? No. Okay, then I don't have to read this sutra. Yeah, may seem this way. Then some sutras, you look at it. For example, one of you asked, like, there's this person called Ambapali. Yeah, so she's a very famous courtesan in the Buddha's time. And then so there's some narrative about her, right? Yeah, but it appears in various suttas. Yeah, so in one particular one, she offered dana to the Buddha. Yeah, and later on, while on the way back, she encountered the Lichavis. Yeah, the Lichavis are very rich people, and while on the carriage, they asked, they had intended to go and offer dana to the Buddha also. And then they heard that the courtesan has made the offer. So they asked Ambapali whether they can, she can give the opportunity to them. Yeah. And then, but the the courtesan Ambapali said, no, no, no. Yeah, I mean, in the sutra, I never described that she do this, but I imagine, okay, no. then in the sutra, I described they snap their fingers. We have been defeated by Ambapali, the courtesan. Yeah. So in some of these narratives, the outcome itself may not sometimes may not even make sense to us because we haven't read enough of the other suttas, so we don't know, like, so what's the big deal, So if I can just weigh in on this a bit, there are a few things here. One is that the first thing is, what gives the Lichavis the right to just ask people, hey, you let me dana instead? It's because they're very rich people and they always get things their way. So they are used to it. Even when it comes to danaing the Buddha, offering dana, offering food to the Buddha, they are used to doing that. They are used to saying, hey, this one quite nice, let me have it. How much? This is yours. How much is it? I pay for it. So this tells us something also, like, not all rich people are like that, but when you become infatuated with your wealth, with your power, then you may abuse it, Yeah. And then there's the other part. Ambapali, her position in society is quite lowly because she's a courtesan. while she's clamored over by a lot of stupid men. But as a whole, in the Buddha's time, and I think even now, in terms of so-called social status, not that we are looking down on people, but it's just the way it is. That she is not someone that people look up and say, wow, I respect this person because she's a courtesan. Now if you compare Ambapali with Jivaka, who is the famous doctor, who would you respect? Even now, when we think about it, yeah, relatively speaking, we respect the doctor. Not that we look down on anybody's profession, but that's the case, right? So imagine now the Lichabis being rich and famous and powerful, rejected by Ambapali. Surely they can offer her any amount of money that she wants in return for that favor, right? Yeah, and to think that she offered her services, whatever kind of services it may be, right? But courtesan, somewhere in that direction, for money, right? And yet she valued the chance to offer food to the Buddha higher than whatever the Lichabis can offer her. And so this tells us another part about this courtesan, that while she make a living in her way, but deep down inside, at least at this point of time in her life, in the sutta, she has come to the point where she don't value the money that much anymore, that she has so much respect for the Buddha. But why is there so much respect? Is it because the Buddha is very tall? Is it because he was a prince? Is it because he's very famous? Or is it because he's very handsome? Surely there are many handsome men in the Buddha's time, Yeah. But if you look at other suttas, then we see that she has reached a certain point of understanding of the teachings where she has developed purified faith in the Buddha. Yeah. So some of these exchanges requires us to have a bit more understanding of through the various other suttas. Yeah. And not just from one person, but from various person, how they react differently to different circumstances. And perhaps also some reflection. Yeah, some reflection. Yeah. I've shared this particular sutta many times, and I've reflected on it many times. Yeah. So then this is the outcome. And then if you just look at this by itself, then okay, Lord, like that, Lord. Yeah, but one of the things that I find very helpful for ourselves is that whenever a certain incident happens, whether in a sutta or in real life, it's good to reflect then on ourselves. Yeah. While we are not courtesan, then we can ask ourselves, what do we value? Yeah, what do we value? Yeah, what are we willing to give up in return for something that we value? What have we been giving up for things we think is valuable? Yeah. If we go back to the Lichabis, the Lichabi brothers, on one hand, they seem quite arrogant and all right, but from their response that they are so affected, like, we've been defeated, it's not apparent here, okay, I must say it's not apparent here. It's not apparent whether they are responding in this way because of their pride and ego, or is it because they also, at least to some extent, value offering to the Buddha. Yeah. So even the rich and who is used to being, can also be moved by the teachings and can also change. Yeah. And at the same time, that's all they do. Snap their fingers, get because I'm pretty sure at that point in time, being rich and powerful, they can easily just kidnap her and be done with it, right? Kidnap her for a day long, then they can go and do dana. Oh, Buddha, we happen to pass by. Oh, is there anyone offering food? We happen to come with a lot. I mean, they could have done that, right? I can imagine but they didn't do that. They actually asked her. Think about it. Okay, think about it. They are rich and powerful. They still bothered to ask. And when they got rejected, they just snap their fingers. That's all they do. They didn't just drive the carriage, drive over and blah. Because in those days, we're not talking about last week or 25 years ago. We're talking about 2,500 years ago, where whoever have a sword can claim title to the land, you know. Yeah. So, what is the hardest defilements to remove? Yeah. Each of us have to learn that ourselves. Yeah. In what sense? We have to observe ourselves. We got to get to know ourselves. Learning the Dhamma is not about learning about some esoteric truth out there. It's really simply about getting to see ourselves, really seeing the good, the bad, the ugly. And when you see it thoroughly, then the way you relate to yourself will change. The way we relate to your existence, your every moment will change. The way we relate to others. Not that you go and observe, this person like this, that person like no, that one is worldly approach. Yeah. Rather, it is that when you really get to see yourself, then you may come to appreciate why others are like that. And you may realize that a lot of what you see of others is more of a projection of our own thinking, you know. Yeah. And so when we see that more clearly, then we may take a step back and say, no, I don't really know that person. In a sense that you realize what you think you know of others is more of who you are than them. Then maybe in the words of that is quite common these days, then we would not be so judgmental. But this question is about my opinion. Okay, in your opinion, which of the defilements do you think is the hardest to remove, reduce, or remove? I will give you what I think, and it will come off like a model answer, but this is really what I think. I'll go with the easiest first. Okay, the easiest defilement to remove is anger. I say easiest, doesn't mean that we are free of anger. The second easiest is greed. The third hardest is delusion. Yeah, or ignorance, if you will. Let me explain very briefly. It's 8:01 already. So the first one, anger, is easiest. Anger is easiest because it's unpleasant to ourselves and it's unpleasant to others. So we have a very strong impetus to want to remove it. At the moment we're angry, it may seem impossible to remove, but after that, usually we feel that we want to remove it. There may be the case where there are some people who are very angry with somebody for a long, long time. But even then, if you ask the person, when the person is not around, would you still want to continue to be angry? No, I don't. Yeah. Only when the person appears and the person is overcome by emotions, by defilements, if you will, then the person cannot help it. But if the person have a choice, the person is not around, the person will still choose to not be angry. I like to think so. Maybe some people, yeah. And even when the person, even if in a case where a person say, no, I'm still angry, it's only because the person think of that incident or that bad experience. Yeah. Now then, in contrast, and so it's much easier to overcome it because we would actively want to remove it. So it's self-motivation. Then if you look at, in contrast to anger, if you look at greed is pleasant to us. The experience is pleasant. That's why we have greed. So we're quite happy with greed. Then how about others? How does our greed affect others? It depends. So it's a bit ambiguous. If our greed doesn't affect others negatively, they are quite happy for us for our greed. Yeah, YouTube video, yeah, you win 4D, your friend can be quite happy for you because they get to greed together with you, unless you're stingy. Yeah, then when you win 4D, then they say, yeah, he wins so what? Win 10 times, don't blunder one, never give us treat. Then every time you are successful in your greed, they are upset because they don't gain from it. And that's also why people are upset. People don't like your anger because they are affected by your anger negatively. And that's also why when someone is angry with someone, a person is angry with another person that you don't like, you are quite happy. Hence the saying, enemy of our enemy is my friend. You know, not going to politics, but all this can be distilled down to the very fundamental, the defilements, how we respond, how we react. Back to anger, back to greed. So because it can be pleasant to ourselves and others, a bit harder to overcome. Because logically you think, oh, greed is not good. I say logically, let me take that back. I should say dharmically. Because by logic, normal world don't necessarily think that greed is always bad. No, not necessarily, Yeah. But in a way, we can say logically, because if you have greed for food, then logically you think, okay, too much food is bad. Yeah. But there are some things, maybe not so apparent. But when you learn the Dhamma, okay, greed is not good for various reasons, blah, 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 blah. But still not so easier, so not so easier or harder than anger, still harder. Yeah, because it's still nice to us. So logically, or dharmically, we think, yeah, greed is not good. But deep down inside, quite nice. Yeah. So we feel a bit like, yeah, pity ourselves. I must give up my greed. Yeah. You go for retreat, then cannot like this, cannot like that. Yeah. Especially the last few precepts, all about our greed. Then your friend tell you, why you so stupid? Go and observe the 8 precept. Cannot do this, cannot do that. Hey, tonight we going karaoke, every once a month, every time month, then you go and observe 8 precept. Then we feel like there's a struggle. But while it is harder than anger, it's still easier than delusion. Yeah, still easier. Why? Because for delusion arises precisely because we don't know. Yeah. So you may recall in the past there were exercises on catching your anger, catching your greed. And then I think there was once I mentioned, okay, let's try catching your delusion. And I highlighted very difficult to catch. Yeah, because delusion itself, your mind is in a state of not knowing. To know that you are not knowing, that's difficult. And that's difficult. Yeah. And because you don't even know. Yeah. So a bit hard for us to want to do something about it, or to know that we need to do something about it, because it doesn't seem to be. Because for greed, it is pleasant experiences. For anger, it's unpleasant experience. For delusion, it's neither pleasant nor unpleasant. So we tend to ignore the neither pleasant or unpleasant, and we do go and pay attention to it. Not paying attention to it, we don't know that it's impermanent, that it's subject to change, subject to suffering. We don't know that it's subject to conditions. We don't know that it's empty in nature. We don't know that it's no self. Yeah. But here's the clincher. beneath greed, beneath anger is delusion. It is because when it's pleasant, we also don't pay attention to it. Hey, Sifu, no, I pay a lot of attention to things that I greed for. We pay attention to the features, but we don't pay attention to the underlying structure. We don't pay attention to the fact that whatever we greed for is also impermanent, is subject to change, subject to suffering, is subject to conditions, is empty in nature as well. That is no self as well. But why are we not aware? Because so pleasant, our mind is just overwhelmed by its pleasantness already. So as a result, beneath the greed is actually a thick layer, very thick layer of delusion. Beneath anger, likewise. Because the moment you see something that is not agreeable to us, unpleasant to us, we can only think of this part, but we fail to see the underlying feature, the way it really is. That is impermanent, subject to change, subject to suffering, subject to conditions, is empty in nature, is no self. Yeah. So when we say that, oh, when it's neither painful nor pleasant, then delusion arise or ignorance arise. But actually, even for the rest, delusion already arise. It's only when delusion arises, then greed can arise, and then anger can arise. So if you ask me which is the hardest, ignorance, delusion, these are the hardest. Oh, Li Ying says, Venerable Sir, wow, so respectful. Reminds me of Charles. Charles always said, Venerable Sir, I would like to give you something for Teacher's Day. Oh, but it's still phase 2 HA. Can I put it at the Buddhist library? Then maybe you collect it. Oh, sorry, this is direct message. Is it meant to be read out? It's okay lah. Not that you are passing me a bomb or anything. Okay. If you happen to go there in the future, yeah, it's okay. You can leave it at the counter. But if you want to go to Buddhist library and leave it there, right? Make sure the item is like how to call it, that you won't, it's not in different parts, so that it's easier for the counter staff to label and say, okay, this is for Venerable Changguan. And the other thing is, before you go, do check, very small, then no problem. Do check that the library is open, because of the restriction, so the hours is a bit different from usual. Yeah, I think they have updated the website, but just call in before you go. Okay. Yeah. Thanks in advance for the thing you want to give me. I don't know what it is. Yeah. Okay. So ask yourself, yeah, what is the defilements that is hardest for you? For me, that's how it is. Okay. Yeah, it sounds very modern answer, but that's how I see it. Yeah. We may look at the defilements differently. Yeah, because we all have different inclination. Some we are so prone to anger, then it is so prominent, so it's very hard for us. Yeah. Some of us, greed is so strong. Yeah, and so on. Yeah. Take some time. Yeah. Don't always be busy. Yeah. Spend some time to reflect. Think about what we are doing. What are we doing here? 阿弥陀佛。愿消三障诸烦恼，
愿消三障诸烦恼，
愿得智慧真明了，
愿得智慧真明了。
不愿罪障悉消除，
不愿罪障悉消除，
世世常行菩萨道。
世世常行菩萨道。
阿弥陀佛。
阿弥陀佛。
Till we meet again, may be guided and protected by the Buddha, Dhamma, and the Sangha. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. And as always,
拜拜。
Have a normal Saturday ahead. Take care. Stay safe. Bye bye.
师傅。
师傅，谢谢师傅。
拜拜，师傅。Thank you，拜拜，
拜拜，师傅。
拜拜，
拜拜 Jenny。拜
拜拜。
拜。
拜师傅。
子琪啊 ？Is it 子琪？Her name is it 子琪？
志奇，
子琪啊，拜子琪。
拜师傅。
So cute 了，哎呦。